You're in Workshop 8, which is new approaches to engage your members. The purpose of the session to help chapter leaders develop strategies to enhance the experience of the members and increase event attendance and member satisfaction, which we can all use. With us today, we have 3 individual chapters. We have John Whittemore, who's the Executive Director of the ACHE North Texas chapter and the East Texas chapter. We also have Sam Lynn, who's the Vice President of the Healthcare Leaders of New York. And we also have Eric Johnson, who's the co-chair, communications chair with the California Association of Healthcare Leaders. So join me in welcoming this morning. John, feel free to come up.
Good morning, everybody. As Phil said, I'm John Whittemore. I'm the Executive Director for both the North Texas and East Texas chapter, and that is my full-time job. And I really don't come from a healthcare background. My background is more membership association management. I've been doing this for about 35 years, so that's just to give you an idea of who I am. What we're going to be talking about today is engaging members, and one of the things that and I'm going to focus more on the North Texas chapter. It's a larger chapter, and we have the luxury of doing more activities than we do on the East Texas side, and so I can kind of relate to both the large chapter and small chapter issues. But we're going to focus today on an event that we do on the North Texas side. And what we did is we recognized, a lot of studies have been done over the years by associations. What engages members, and we realized the more we engage them, the more we can get them to connect with each other, the more we can get them connected to the chapter, and the more they become involved, the happier they're going to be, the retention rate is going to go up, satisfaction is going to go up, and so forth. So that's where we kind of looked at this, and we started with, okay, what do we want to focus on first? And we thought, well, let's get the new members as they're coming in and get them involved, and then from there, we can get them engaged at the beginning, so we can kind of hopefully groom them to where they want to be engaged going forward. So what we created was basically a new member orientation. We thought, okay, nobody's going to want to attend anything that's called orientation, so let's give this a jazzier name. Let's call it a new member networking blitz. And so we created this, and we had several of them. We did do them twice a year, and it was something. At first, it was free, no charge whatsoever. Come, we will feed you a pizza and salad dinner, and it's from 4:30 to 8, and we're going to do a whole bunch of different exercises. We finally started realizing, this isn't just for new members. We have members who have been involved in our chapter for a number of years who have really never engaged, or some that had engaged and just kind of fallen away and wanted to re-engage or reconnect for one reason or another. So we dropped the new member part, and we just started calling it networking blitzes. And one little tidbit we found out along the way is when something is free, half of the people, literally 50%, wouldn't show up. They had no skin in the game whatsoever. We raised the price to, it's currently $10. We're now at 20% no-show versus 50%. So just a little tidbit there. So what we did, we created these networking blitzes, and I'm going to kind of run through what a typical one might look like. These change based on they change on site. We will actually drop exercises that we think, okay, this won't work with this audience for some reason or another, or this one's really working very well, so let's stick with this one and let's extend this one for a little bit longer. And so that's what we end up doing. But I'm going to kind of just walk through a basic agenda with you. I sent an advance, so in the materials, Phil, what's it called? The materials that are available to all registrants. You will find this. This is a more detailed agenda than what I am going through today, but I'm just going to touch upon some of the highlights of this. And if you want to read in more detail about these exercises, they're included in this agenda that's posted online. And so the goals for our blitzes is basically we want everybody to feel more connected to the chapter by the time it's over. And we want everybody to feel like they know other members in the chapter. And the whole point of this is, I keep thinking of people who are introverts, people who don't enjoy networking, people who are wallflowers, who, they easily join a chapter and never attend a single event because they're afraid to go. They don't like networking. They go or they sit there and I've seen it before in other organizations where they were all CEOs of companies, and I've seen people sitting in the back. And these are the people who, for a living, run a company, but they are still afraid or hesitant to get involved and engage with other people. So it doesn't come naturally to everybody, and so that was the premise. Let's connect everybody. And then one thing we continuously do throughout all of our blitzes is we remind them over and over again, you're going to get out of ACHE what you put into it. Recently, our membership and networking committee, we did the retention outreach, trying to reach the people who had recently resigned that National encouraged us to do. And I had an email forwarded to me from one of the membership and networking team who had sent out an email to one of the people who had resigned this year for non-payment of dues. And the woman wrote back and said, I really didn't get anything out of ACHE. I didn't attend any events or anything, but I really I don't know if it's for me. I didn't really get anything out of it. And she went on and listed all the things that she never did. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe if you attend something, you'll get something out of it. And so she was probably blaming ACHE National, ACHE North Texas for her lack of involvement, but yet she's the one who never attended a single thing. So this is something to try to entice people, to get them involved, and to remind them, you're going to get out of this what you put into it, so we encourage you to put something into it. And here's how you can do it, basically, is the way we approach this. One of the first things we do, we have either the president of our chapter, this year Jared Shelton, or a board member if the president's not available. If not, somebody high-ranking in the membership and networking committee, the group that puts this event on. We have them greet the audience, just to let them realize this is an important thing. The chapter values your membership, values and encourages you to be involved, and we want you here. So that's something we kind of always start off with. Then we go into an icebreaker. I come from an education background. I went to school to be a teacher, and then for many of my years of association management, I focused on chapter education. And one of the things we always said is try to connect people from the very beginning. You're always going to have those wallflowers. How many of you enjoy networking? Raise your hand. How many of you don't? I'm one of those people that I can do it. I just don't. It's not how I get my energy. It's always going to be a mixture in your audience. So find ways to connect and get people to connect. This event, what we do is we have, I went too far. We do the icebreaker, just a basic question, non-invasive questions, questions that people aren't going to be hesitant to answer. But then we always kind of throw in there, name a passion of yours. One tidbit here, this is Felicia Clone, who's on our board. She is incredible with this exercise. She is really good at, you like dogs? You have dogs? You two should connect later and talk. Or you enjoy singing and you play the guitar? You two get together and play make a band. She's really good at connecting people on the fly and getting people talking and engaged, and it's a fun experience. She calls herself some Beyonce something or other, I think. But she's very funny with that kind of stuff. From here, we always go into the basics of the chapter. And this is the portion that I, as the executive director, usually give. And it's the essential part, and I always forewarn, and this is probably the most boring part because it's not as interactive, but let me get through some basics here. How do we communicate with you? What are the kinds of events? What are our events? What do we offer? What is a face-to-face versus a qualified event? How do we make our money? How's the chapter supported? We need our sponsors. Here are our sponsors. We're very appreciative of them. If you know of anybody who might be interested in being a sponsor, have them come see me. all these different things. How's our board structured and so forth. I go through these basics just so that everybody has that basic knowledge. You'd be surprised how few people really understand. Some people don't even realize that I send out weekly announcements. They get it every Tuesday, but they may not even realize that that's something that they can look for, and that's one of our major tools for communicating, and they may not even realize that. I also go into what is networking, the do's and don'ts. Networking 101 is what I call it. And for this one, I always tell a story of a guy. When I first started with the chapter about 4 years ago, I was at a breakfast with the CEO event, and this guy who was in his late 30s, early 40s came up to me and said, "John, how do you network?" And at first I thought he was kidding. And then I looked at him and I realized he's very serious. Here he is in his late 30s, early 40s, and doesn't know how to network. So I gave him a few tidbits, there, how to do it. So at this event, what I do is I say, how do you network? I get the audience involved, try to engage the audience as much as possible. And so I ask people, how do you network? Other ideas. What is not networking? And I always try to bring up the point of networking is not asking for favors. So if you're looking for a job and you walk up to somebody and say, hey, will you give me a job? That's not networking. That's asking for a favor. Think about this. Do you want the first person coming up to you and asking you for a favor and you don't know that person? First reaction is going to be, just keep me away from this person. And also we've had some CEOs tell us before that they're hesitant to come to some events because they're bombarded by the people who want jobs. So we're trying to nip a couple of things in the bud here by doing networking 101. So once I get through with all of this stuff, the basics, then we dive into different exercises and try to get the audience engaged as much as possible. One of the exercises that we've done, and I'm just going to give you some examples of exercises, and pick and choose from these as your time permits, as you feel comfortable, as your audience seems to be flowing, whatever's working. One of them is we polled the registrants in advance and said, we listed off numerous different kinds of hobbies or activities, sporting kinds of events, number of children, significant others, or single, or listed off a whole bunch of things, and we said, choose the ones that pertain to you or you have an interest in. And skiing, playing football, antiquing, shopping, whatever. We gathered this information, and then we tried, before the event, we compiled groups of people. We had tables of, say, 10 or so. And so on the bottom of their name badges, we'd write a number of a table. And when they'd come in, we'd say, okay, go sit at this table, not telling them why they were seated together. And then during dinner, I think it was, we would say, all right, here's your exercise over dinner. Talk amongst yourselves and find out what we know that you have in common at your table. The beauty of this exercise is they're going to be finding out a whole bunch of information about themselves by just talking and trying to figure out what they have in common. And then after the exercise, you go around and say, okay, what did you find out that you had in common? You say you enjoy boating. Well, we didn't know that, but we had that you enjoyed skiing. What about this table over here? You say what? And then we would say, oh, well, we sat you together because you didn't respond to the survey. So it's a fun way to do it. One thing with this, so if you have a lot of no-shows, it's a lot of work that goes into it, and if they don't show, it really can mess with your seating and so forth. But it can be a lot of fun when you have a good group show up. Something else we throw in here in between the different exercises is we have a more seasoned member who will come and present about his or her ACHE experience, that personal testimonial kind of thing. This most recent time we had Scott Hurst, who's our president-elect, sitting right over there, as well as Carmen Pace, who they had met at an ACHE event. Carmen was looking for a position. Scott, you knew of a position, they connected, she's now in that position. So it worked in their favor. But again, we always say, it's not going to always work that way. You're not always going to get the job directly by meeting somebody. But that's, this is the beauty of ACHE and getting to know and building up your network. So, the toilet paper exercise. How many of you have ever heard of the toilet paper exercise? Okay, a few of you. Pass around a roll of toilet paper, and you say, tear off as many squares of toilet paper that you want. No explanation. Don't tell them why they're doing this. Some will take 2, some will take 5, some will take 25. After everybody's torn off their certain number of rolls of toilet, their squares, say, okay, now we're going to go around the room and everybody's going to tell us one thing real quickly about yourself per square that you tore off. So if I tore off 5, I would say, I'm John Whittemore, I'm from the Washington, D.C. area originally. I have a 2.5-year-old dachshund at home. I lived in New York for 10 years. This is my second time living in Dallas. 7 years the first time, 7 years the second time. And a distant cousin of mine was Pretty Boy Floyd, the gangster of the 20s. You know, that kind of thing, we just roll it off. It's very exciting to hear what people have to say. It's a great way for people to get to know each other. And at the end of each exercise, we try to say, okay, remember what people said. Go up to that person that you had something in common with or that you're interested in something that he or she said afterward and make a connection about that. It doesn't have to be work-related. You know, it could be anything. So always trying to remind them why we're doing this. It's a fun exercise. The next one. Okay, this is one of my favorites. We have everybody, and if I had more time, I would do this here, but I'm going to instead have you raise your hands instead of stand up. But I would have you stand up, call this wall A, call this wall B, and I'm going to name off different things, and if you can relate more to the statement for wall A, you would gravitate toward this wall. If you relate more to statement B, you would gravitate toward the B wall. If you're kind of in the middle, you don't really relate to either one of them, you kind of stand in the middle, that's okay too. And it's a great way to visually see, you know, who is dealing with what and what you might have in common with other people, but it's also a good way to break it up and get people off of their seats and keep things active and moving. And so, you know, for example, I'm going to do a couple here. If healthcare was your first career choice, raise your hand. And then otherwise, obviously, if healthcare wasn't your first career choice, those of you who didn't raise your hand. Then another one is if you had a mentor who has helped you in your career, raise your hand. Okay, excellent. And I don't know if you, and then I'll keep going here. If you were, let's see, this is one that I always kind of gravitate toward as well. If you've had a major loss in your life this last year, raise your hand. And then what I would do is if somebody felt comfortable, I would turn to you and say, you know, do you feel comfortable in sharing? For example, one of you just raise your hand, would you feel comfortable in sharing what your loss was this year? Any of you?
My cat.
Her cat, you lost your cat. As a dog owner, that would be traumatizing, I can only imagine. And how many of us can relate to that? That makes this situation very real. And what's your name? Kelly. Thank you for sharing that. And it really, what it does is it makes this whole experience, you know, it changes the vibe. And what we do with this whole evening is we're trying to start off, remember that icebreaker exercise where we start off name, rank, serial number? We're bringing it down to where getting to the real meat of what's happening in people's lives so that they can make meaningful, authentic connections. And that's what we're trying to do through this whole evening. Thank you, Kelly. The next exercise is, this one is a little bit complicated. I'm going to run through it as quickly as possible. Again, more details in the handout that I sent and that you have available to you electronically. We break groups out into cell groups. And it's groups of 8 to 10, however many. We probably no more than 12 and no fewer than 8 per group. Each table has a trained moderator, somebody that we have coached on how to be a moderator. And they're going to kind of go around and everybody's going to share. And there are two rules to this. One is no shoulding. You should do this, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. Instead it's I statements of, here's what I experienced when I had something similar happen to me. Or if I were in your shoes, I'm thinking I might do this. those are okay, but should statements are not allowed. The other thing is everything that's said in that circle, that cell, is confidential. And I ask everybody to agree to that before the moderator asks everybody to agree to that before we proceed. That allows everybody to feel comfortable that whatever they're getting ready to share is going to be kept in that group. It could be, that the person's boss is at another cell, but the person is basically whispering saying, I'm in trouble at work. I have this issue here, or whatever. We want people to be able to share so that they can, again, connect at that deep level. As time permits, the way they start off with is, what's happened to you within the last 30 days, good and bad. What are you looking forward to in the next 30 days, good and bad? It's kind of like a deeper icebreaker question that gets everybody talking. And the good thing about all these exercises is we're trying to get everybody, even the quietest, most insecure, person involved and connected. And then once you go around, everybody has shared the 30 days before, after, or looking forward to. Then it could be anything from something that everybody kind of talked about, work-life balance, how off it is, and how much time they're working. And that could be a breakout session within that group after you've kind of gone through that exercise. Okay, those of you who said that you have great work-life balance, I'm going to do this real quickly. Raise your hand if you think you have good work-life balance. Okay, there were a lot of hands that didn't go up. So those of you who those who raised their hands, I would look around and maybe run up to them after this. Like we could even do it if we were in a small group session. I would probably have you do this. Have some of those people who did raise their hands saying they do have good work-life balance, share some of their secrets. How do they achieve that? What do they do at work to make sure that they have that balance? Again, exchanging valuable information that they're not going to get at the normal education event where we give them 20 minutes to meet and greet each other. It's just not going to happen. So those are our cell sessions, and then I'm going to wrap up, but also it's always very important to wrap up any event. We did one of these events once, and I forgot to suggest that we do a wrap up, thinking that somebody would do that. And it just didn't come naturally to the person who was leading that particular event. And so it's like, okay, thanks everybody for coming. It's like, oh, it was jarring. It was like, what just happened? What was this all about? But the important thing is to always summarize and say, okay, what was the goal for tonight? The goal was for you to connect. Do you feel like you connected? Do you feel like you were able to find out more about some of your peers within the chapter? Do you feel more comfortable about going to a next event? When you go to the next event, be on the lookout for these people that you've met here tonight. You now know somebody in this chapter. So when you go to an event, I encourage you to look for each other. From this event, we've had people get together for lunch afterward or on other days. We've had people, a lot of people obviously connect through LinkedIn and so forth. But it's really proven to be very successful in that way. And I also always say, remind them again, you're going to get out of ACHE what you put into it. All of you participated tonight. You may have, in some cases, maybe a forced proactive approach, but you were active. You were actually, active in engaging in this chapter. So encourage you to do that outside of this room, the next events that you go to and so forth. And then we always give them free time afterward to carry on the conversation. And they do. Usually there are people there well after a half an hour just standing around talking, connecting on the issues that they've talked about and they've shared in that meeting. And that's basically it for this event. Anybody have any questions of me, or do you want to save the questions to the end, Joe?
I'll save it to the end.
Any questions? Or you can answer. Yes, ma'am. In the back.
You said that you had a 50% different, 50% rate when it was free.
Yes.
Were the numbers higher though? Like in the end, did you have the same amount of people?
We actually, this last time had, I think it was 66 people show up, and the first time it was probably around 50 people. So it's increasing in
Did
participation.
you have more people register though that didn't show? Did the same amount of people come up in the end that actually show up at the meetings, or did they?
No, the registration count is rising, and the attendee count is rising, even though there is a fee. The $10 does not seem to make a difference whatsoever, other than they feel like they have skin in the game.
Can we have it for, or is it just registration only?
We always accept registration at the door. Yes, sir.
So your turnover rate in your chapter, did you look at before and after in terms of
It's internal rate.
retention, membership
Retention. DFW is kind of a very weird area. We are losing so many people, and maybe you guys are all experiencing that. We lose so many people each year who move out, who are no longer in healthcare, who are transitioning to other cities and so forth. So we don't have the statistics on the people who have attended to see if they are still involved. A lot of them have moved on. A lot of them come because they have just lost jobs and so forth, and they're looking to make those connections. So it would be hard to judge just on. We could look at whether they're still members or not, and whether they've retained, but we don't have the statistics to compare them to those who didn't attend, whether or not they stayed and why didn't they stay and so forth. We have not done that research. But I can tell you just from people talking about them and people talking about events that they've attended and how it's seared in their minds, so to speak, this experience, that it is making a difference. It's over here.
What times of the year do you hold these?
We usually aim for, we do one in late winter, early spring, and we just had our last one September 10th.
How many do you do a year?
2. We do 2 a year. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How long did you say they were?
From 4:30 till 8, and that's a weird time, we know, but we're trying to get people out before too late, but we do use that 3.5-hour period of time.
Do you serve like a meal?
We do serve pizza and salad. And the chapter at first was paying for that, and now the $10 registration fee covers it.
What kind of menus do you have?
Usually for these, we're in hospital conference rooms, just because they're given to us for free. Yes, sir.
Have you seen a lot of student engagement?
Yes. Yeah, this last time in particular, we had, I think 10 students came from one school. Excellent. Well, thank you guys. I'll still be here if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sam Lynn. I'm the current Vice President for Healthcare Leaders of New York, or HLNY. My day job, I work with business and strategy development for the Medicaid population at Suffolk Care Collaborative. We're an affiliate of Stony Brook Medicine, and we're located in Long Island, New York. For those who are not familiar with Long Island, that's where the Hamptons and Montauk's at. If you're a Golden State Warrior fans, that's how you got Kevin Durant. So HLNY prides itself in building effective programming and marketing to the members, and that's how we engage with our members. And I'm glad that I'll be sharing some of our chapter's approaches and some of the factors and decisions that are considered when we build out our programs, as well as the type of initiatives to meet the diverse needs of our membership. So a little bit about Healthcare Leaders of New York, or HLNY. It covers the New York downstate region, which includes the 5 boroughs of New York City, the 2 counties of Long Island, Suffolk, and Nassau, and the lower and mid-Hudson Valley. We do have some interesting, unique characteristics. We're an extremely dense area, so dense region, so we have over 100 hospitals, and to travel potentially 10 miles will take an hour and a half. So those are all considerations when we want to build out certain programs and initiatives. And in Queens, it's actually been dubbed, Queens is where LaGuardia Airport and JFK Airport is at, has been dubbed as the most diverse place in the world. So we do have quite a bit of diversity in the New York metro region. A little bit about our stats and demographics. So the average year-round membership for the past 3 years is 1,866 members for HLNY. We're about exactly 50% male, female. About 40% are directors and C-suite level, And we do try to identify where do most of our members work at and in which counties, as well as their race and ethnicity. So through the data, we also have built a multi-pronged engagement strategy that really, with both a wide net approach where we can engage with multiple members, a lot of members, and as well as a focused, tailored approach. So I'll be going through some of these programs, initiatives. I'm not going to go into details to a lot of them, but I'm be more than happy to speak with anybody to talk about some of these programs and initiatives afterwards. So one of the first things we do for the membership committee is to send a welcome letter to any new HLY members. So what we do is we pull down the chapter roster, we identify who are the new members, and we send the membership chair then sends a templated message to them. However, within that templated message, we do add what are the upcoming events so that they are aware and engaged right away when are the next events that they could join in. Actually, so I was going to also mention, we also have a greater than 50% open rate. So at that point, I wasn't sure what are the benchmarks, but from yesterday's presentation, I believe Frank mentioned that about 30% open rate is pretty good. So over 50% within that first 90 days seems to be a good approach in engaging new members. So through the available data, we also know when is the greatest net percent change in new members. And we noticed that there is a big increase in members between May through July and September through October. So we wanted to make sure that as we build out our calendar events, that we hold most of our events towards the latter half of the year. So we do hold about 75% of our events towards the latter part of the year. And so because of the data, it tells us where and when to hold our events. So in building our community, we mentioned that we do have a wide net strategy, and there are 2 annual programs that we run. The first program is a boat cruise. We call it the annual Past Presidents Boat Cruise, which is well attended. It's averaged about 400 registrants in the past 3 years. It's 2.5 hours. You're on a boat. All you have to do is network and have some dinner and get to meet some folks. It also has another purpose. It engages our past presidents. So in that boat cruise, we make sure that we give we honor our past presidents. You can see some of our past presidents there. There are things to wear the Hawaiian shirts while everyone else wears suits. But that's how we honor them and how we engage with them. Also, in our annual holiday party, we have averaged about 240 registrants, and it's free for our members. So we do open that up, and it does allow a way to show appreciation to our members. So another thing our membership committee has done is recognize members and their tenure in ACHA and HLY. So what we do is we pull down the chapter roster and we create a calculated field off of their member join date to identify, okay, how many years have they been in ACHA or HLY. And then we send a letter to these individuals and say, congratulations, thank you for this many years in HLY. It's a low-cost initiative that we've done, and we have a great response from it. I've received a lot of great feedback from it saying thank you for recognizing, I've been HLY member for over 30 years, so we do have a few of those. And that had over 40% open rate, so that was pretty good. And there are another a little more focused targeted event was creating connections within an organization. So this all started with some board members saying, I would like to create a listserv of HLY members within our organizations. The challenge, though, is from the chapter roster to people enter their organizations. It's a free text field, so you got so many iterations of how an organization name is spelled. So we developed the analytics committee this year, and we created these reference tables. So we know that like New York Presbyterian Hospital, there's like 12 ways to spell it. We created a standardized name to normalize the name so that we could create these cohorts of individuals for certain organizations. We identify a champion within the organization so that they could reach out to these individuals. This data also helps us with sponsorship. So when we go to New York Presbyterian, we can say to the marketing team and mention to them, these are how many members are in your organization that's with HLY, would you consider being a sponsor for HLY? One of the chapter member needs survey, one of the number one factors to increase attendance was convenience and location. So for the first time this year, we're doing a dual location program, which is in 2 sites, but the same template, because we want to maximize on that 12 face-to-face credits. So if we were to do 2 different templates, we would be over that 12 face-to-face credits. So we're holding an event in Columbia University, which is in the Upper West Side, and Stony Brook University Hospital, which is on the east side of Long Island. So we're looking to target different members, but based on their geography, we're hoping that will increase that type of engagement by going to different locations that way. And it's 2 different faculty also.
So same panel, just different days and times, or they're having the same time?
It's different days and time, different faculty. So we had to make sure in our website and registration that if you attend both panels, you're not going to receive 3 face-to-face credits. It's only 1 face-to-face credit. But as I mentioned, it'll probably take about 4 hours to drive from Stony Brook to Columbia. So that would be the same populations that will go. Another initiative from our Diversity and Inclusion Committee was creating a diverse pipeline. So what we did was we created a program. It's a 12-month program where we have fellow members who reaches out to those diverse individuals in our membership that is eligible for to be a fellow. And so it's a year-long program where the champions reach out to these candidates and engage with them and kind of coach them through what it takes to be a fellow and encourage them along so that we can increase the pipeline of diverse leaders. And this kind of segues nicely into our next initiative, which was creating thematic events, which are more like social networking events. So at the beginning of this year, we had a Exploring the Board certification, which we met in the bar, and we had about 56 registrants. It was open to anybody, but this was also used as a touch point for the diversity initiative, for the champions to reach out to the candidates and say, hey, we're having a program here in this bar. Would you be interested in coming and learn more about board certification? We are also in the midst of planning a Better Together event in New York, probably late October, early November, so that's still in the works. And just recently, we had a Women in Healthcare event. Again, it was a social networking kind of event. It was great, it was sold out. We had 91 registrants. We only were supposed to have 60, 70, about 75. No, we were only supposed to have 70, but then we were able to push it to 90, to bring it up to 90. And it was sold out, it was a great event. And this also led to the next event. So as we plan certain events, we try to make them more connected. So our flagship event is our mini Congress, which is a one-day event, gets 4.5 face-to-face credits. And one of the panels was about career development in the Me Too movement. So using the Women in Healthcare social networking event, we encourage them to come to the next event, which is the mini Congress, where we will talk about some of the issues of mentoring women and women leadership in the Me Too era. So that's something that we try to connect a lot of these events together. The other thing that in the chapter member needs surveys, they indicated that the second highest factor for attendance to these events are credits. So we do give 4.5 face-to-face credits, and for the first time this year, we actually offer CME credits as well. One of the other things that we work with is the Higher Education Network. We identify certain program, MHA program directors, and we talk to them and we ask them what are some of their needs. So for Columbia University, we were at their fellowship fair and we represented HLY, ACAG, share with the students what are some of the benefits of being an ACAG member and how that can help with their fellowship application. At Hofstra University, there's a huge coaching event that we were able to provide some coaches for their coaching event. And we do a lot of dual programs in the universities and engage with their students that way. Creates a buzz with the students and also help spread the word of what ACAG is and HLY. So a couple of the next steps that we're trying to do is really build on the analytics of all these programs and what are the outcomes. some of the things we want to talk about is membership engagement. Are we looking to engage, as I mentioned earlier, our membership is about over 1,800, but we only have about 300 to 400 attendees in these events. So there's a large group of members that we're just not tapping into. So do we look at repeat members, or do we look at new members that attend certain events? And what geography will bring in more members and different members? So those are things that are being tasked with our analytics committee for next year to identify, what are some good programs, what are some of the outcomes, and where identify areas of improvement. One of the challenges that we also have, I think most of you guys might have also, is that with the chapter roster, they don't give you the ACHE number. So we almost have to create a unique identifier for each individual member. It's almost like a patient getting their MRNs and having different MRNs throughout the EHRs. It's extremely complicated. And also we're looking to create a library of reference tables and toolkits so that we could build off of what's been done previously and share some of the lessons learned and try to repeat what was successful and improve upon the things that we find that would be lacking. So those are just some of the things that we've done in Healthcare Leaders of New York, HLY. Again, I just really flew through a lot of the different programs and events that we've done, but we would like to speak to me a little bit afterwards about some of the logistics and details of the program. I'll be more than happy to. Thank you.
All right. So,
excuse me. As mentioned, my name is Eric Johnson. Greetings from the Sunshine State of California. And I'm co-chair of the Communications Committee. Ooh, let me get my slide. Excellent. So my name is Eric Johnson. From California. My day job is I work in financial planning analytics for Adventist Health, headquartered in Roseville, just north of Sacramento. So I appreciate all the analytics and data over there. That's great. And John as well has been a good resource for us over the last couple of years. Attending this, I've been able to pick John's brain on a lot of other things. So he's also a wealth of knowledge on some other areas. Just a little bit of demographics about our chapter. So we cover 50 of the 58 counties within California. So we have a very large geographic area. We currently have 1,300 members, 118 students, and then you can see the kind of breakout with the military. And so with that military presence, we have some of our members that are scattered around and about. And it's difficult to engage just because a lot of times they're not able to get there physically for different reasons. And so I'm going to be talking about how do we engage people, and this is kind of just a map of where our membership is. I just downloaded the roster and looked at everybody's registered zip code and plotted it on a map just to kind of see the spread. And what we've done is we've created these 3 LPC areas where we have LPC chairs, that a committee that put together the face-to-face events and so forth within those areas. And they're open to the whole membership, but we've specifically targeted certain areas for people that maybe have a harder time getting around. Any of you that visited the Bay Area, that just going across the Bay Bridge or somewhere can take 30 minutes to an hour just to go a little distance. So pioneering and live streaming has been great. It's been a huge benefit. Some of the platforms that we've been utilizing, we have our own Facebook page. We do Instagram, we have LinkedIn, and we've also, over the last couple of years, we completely rechanged our whole website using a more WordPress and then also Eventbrite. And so along with that, we've also created a YouTube channel for California Association of Healthcare Leaders. So if you go to YouTube and search the channel, you should be able to find it. And we use that for streaming, and we also use a Facebook Live platform. So those are the two platforms that we're currently using. They are free to use and pretty easy to set up. So this year I sent in a proposal to get funding for the innovation grant, which was $5,000. Our live streaming journey started about 2.5 years ago. As a chapter, one of our strategic initiatives is we wanted to start exploring different ways that we can engage with those people that have a hard time making it in person. And so 2.5 years ago, we started playing around with it, and receiving this grant this year has really helped accelerate that and being able to purchase new equipment. And for a couple of years, we've been kind of going with just a basic setup, but with this grant, and I'll show you some more of the equipment that I've been able to purchase, but really dive into the audio part of it, which has been a huge benefit. But the goal with this is, definitely going through, flush out what's a good way, easy setup that chapters can also do locally, in your area. That's not super expensive and easy to manage and handle. And so at the end of this year, I'm putting together a document that's going to be a lot more thorough, kind of walking through how to do all this. So keep an eye out for that. I'm sure it'll be distributed somehow through ACHE. So at the events, I transform into DJ up there. So this is a sample of what it looks like. Yeah, there's a lot going on in there. So some of the equipment is, okay. Of course, you got the headphones. So you need one person that's dedicated to this. It's a lot of work, I'd say, during the event. So you really need identify someone that's going to be able to champion this. And this is, keep in mind too, this is also taking it to the next level. This is the extra audio that I purchased. So the camera that I'll show you, and it's actually set up right here, it's recording us right now. It's called the Mevo camera, and I'll give you the information on that in a sec. But it does have a built-in microphone, but for enhanced audio, it allows you to plug in external audio sources. So whether that's, I noticed over here there's some audio jacks to the in-house sound. So I could figure out a way to run a cord from there, capturing the in-house sound into my mixer board up here. So I could plug it into one of those and then control the audio from there. Or as part of the grant, what I did is I went and purchased a bunch of lavalier mics, 4 of them. And so what I do is when we have a panel discussion, I mic them up beforehand and remind them that they're being recorded on audio. But I plug them all into here into the soundboard, and I'm able to, so I tag them by their names and so forth, or however you want to do it, so that I know whose audio I'm controlling. And so it all feeds into here. So I'm sitting off to the side, trying to be inconspicuous, but at this one you can see I was kind of in the front. But I tried to keep my head down so people could see. But it all feeds into here, and then I'm over here just controlling the different sounds. And that's been great because you're able to see with the recording live, how the audio is sounding coming through. And also with the headphones up here, I'm wearing those the whole time just to make sure that, and that comes out right here. So everything comes in and you're controlling the audio, and then out here, that's what you're listening to make sure that you're recording everything, capturing all the audio as you want it to feed in. The nice thing about this is if someone starts having a coughing attack or they're drinking their water or anything, you can turn it down. And my best practice is, you can see all these microphones are down except for one. So I'm over there literally kind of like a DJ. As people are talking and stop talking and whatnot, I'm adjusting those. And that's really helped cut down a lot of background noise. So you don't get all that extra stuff in there. I also have a laptop set up. So in addition to controlling the audio and so forth, I am also monitoring the live stream on my end. And I also have another pair of earbuds right there. And so what I'm doing is basically every now and then just checking to make sure that the end user, everything's working right. That the video's flowing and that the audio, they can still hear it well. So that's kind of my main setup. And I'll share my email address at the end, but definitely reach out to me. You know, if you do start exploring into this, I've learned a lot from it. Here's a picture of our region right here, Ball G. And this is at a recent meeting. So this is the camera set up. That's one way that I did it. And that's this one, but I had it on a tripod. So here's some of the equipment. This camera bundle right here, it's called the Mevo Plus bundle. We purchased it for $900 2.5 years ago. The price has gone down. They actually announced a price reduction 2 weeks ago. It's now $730 for the whole bundle, which isn't much in my research considering everything that it does. That unit itself has the power to connect to Wi-Fi, and as long as you have a strong enough signal, that'll be feeding live up to the cloud. I also purchased a Verizon modem that we carry with it. There are circumstances and cases where, as you can imagine, in a hospital, a real secure environment, sometimes the Wi-Fi, you can't get around the firewall, just little devices. Even using network logins and so forth, it doesn't like that little device for some reason sometimes. And so that's one of the challenges with this, as well as you got to really do some research ahead of time is what I found. And if there are cases like that, really work with the IT for the healthcare system to get to allow that device through the firewall. The lavalier mics is the Shure brand. I also have a condenser mic, which I'm using. It's this little silver one right here. It's kind of like a podcasting quality microphone. And so that just captures the clear audio into there without having that whole mixer board and so forth. That's the audio mixer I used. There was a digital converter. You had to change the analog to digital signal to go into there. And then and so forth, a bunch of extra cords. So as I mentioned, here is the website for the camera system that we've used. I will say there's probably a lot more options out there, and it just depends on what works for you. In my research, I found that this is a good setup, just because it comes with everything you need, all the basics, and then you kind of can build and scale out around that however you want. And as I mentioned, the price did recently just come down to $730 for that whole system. So here's an example of what you see on your phone, and I'm recording it right now, so this is what you see on your phone as you're operating it. Just a few things. So this is where you pay attention. This is the actual view that's being pushed to the people or recording. So that's what's in your field of view right here. And also this red line all the way to the outside, that tells me I'm recording and showing people that whole field of view. The cool thing about this is it allows you to set different little, I'm not sure what they're called, but frames. You can frame in, if I just want to zoom in on that one person, I can set up a little window, and when I tap on him, it just shows him only. And if I want to do another one with just those two, I can do that so that people aren't seeing the whole thing. And it's kind of cool because in that way it almost seems like you have multiple cameras in the room, but really you just have one with a wide view, but you're just changing through the different frames and what people are seeing. So that's where you can control it on your phone. This is also the audio, so you want it to stay green. And the nice thing about this is if it starts getting hot in the red, That's the other thing that's nice about the mixer board is because some speakers talk super loud, some are very soft. And so with the different controls, you can get right to that sweet spot where it's kind of right there in the green. And you want to, the audio will clip if it gets red, too much sound in there. It'll actually kind of, if you're listening to it on that other end, it'll kind of drop dead for a second or so because it got too loud. So you can kind of monitor that there. This is showing you this recording. This is at the beginning. We had 2 people on. And this one, we didn't publicly advertise or just send it out public. This was a face-to-face event. So people that registered at a on-site, we had an off-site location at a University of Phoenix location in Fresno. And so there was a group, they're one of those 2. So we had a viewing station set up, across on the other side of the state for a group that was watching in Fresno. And so you can see, who's logged in right there. And then this is where you control the audio mixing. So you have your different inputs, built-in camera. You can use your microphone from your phone or the USB audio, and that's how I plug in the external audio feed. So again, these are just gain controls right here for how hot and sensitive the sound is coming in. And just again, you're constantly just monitoring that audio. Usually I found you don't have to play with it too much. You kind of quickly figure out people's volume levels as they're speaking and kind of adjust it. And then for the most part, you can just kind of leave it. But that's something that I always keep my eye on. So some of the things we use it for, face-to-face events, learning from leaders. And one of the examples of, so this has been a good learning process. We did a learning from leader with one of the chiefs at the UC Davis Medical Center in May. And kind of when I was playing around with a lot of this extra audio stuff and whatnot, and I was so excited to have it all set up, but their firewall system, I just could not break it. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to stream that one live, but the nice thing is I was able to record it, and then right after the recording was done, upload it, and then push out the link to everybody. So that was a good learning experience. And it can also be a little stressful, as you can imagine, whoever's running this. There's a lot of unknowns that can happen, and you just have to kind of run with it. Have some backup plans, and the default, if whatever you try, I got there an hour and a half early, even worked with the IT people, they weren't able to get it going. So my default was just record it and then send it up afterwards, the link. Some of the other things that we use it for is career conversations, where we'll sit down with an executive and just have someone interview them about their career. And there's no audience there, or sometimes there is an audience, but similar to learning from leaders, but it's more kind of like a active dialogue between the 2 people. And a lot of times it's someone that's kind of familiar with them, knows them, so kind of get a little bit more of a personal feel to it. We also live stream our annual meeting and awards event. So we do that in Walnut Creek in the Bay Area, and of course not everybody can make it there as well. And so we've been able to stream those, and a nice thing about using the YouTube platform is it allows for chat, live chat. So in addition to me sitting there just monitoring what the user is seeing, I'm also seeing any chat questions or comments and so forth that are coming in. And sometimes we do get questions from like our remote viewing location in Fresno. They had a few questions for one of the events, and I'm able to write them on a sticky note or a card or something and just get it to the moderator, and they're able to interject the question for our colleagues that are watching remotely somewhere. And one of the things that we want to start doing is just chats with the chapter leaders, kind of getting to know them a little bit, similar to career conversations, but maybe a chance to speak a little bit more about, sit down with our president, who he is and what does he do for work, and what are some of his goals and objectives for the chapter, what motivates him to be, serve in that capacity and so forth. So that's something that we're going to start doing pretty soon, is start having these chats, do them live, and allow people, anybody that's watching via Facebook or YouTube, to just have interactions with our leaders and so forth. So some of the challenges, as I mentioned, there can be a lot of equipment, but it's all scalable, so it just depends on what you're doing. One of the things you have to look out for, is where's my power supply going to come from? And you can see they tape down their extension cords and so forth. I got in the habit of throwing in duct tape. So this is all stuff you kind of have to learn, and that's why it's good to have someone that's going to champion this, because there's a lot of small, tiny things that you're not going to think about just on the fly, but it's going to kind of come over time. So everything, and I have a little power cord going across here, and my fear is that someone might just not see it and walk through there, so I just placed a chair there, hopefully prevent someone from wanting to wander that way. But these are all little things to think about. Where's your power supply? Make sure that no one's going to trip. Hazards. Keep the camera out of the way so it's not blocking the view of everybody. Placing it. I also asked them to bring in a cart so it's separate from where the projector is, because they pick up audio from that if it's right next to it. So it's just a lot of stuff like that you got to think about in the configuration, the setup of your room. And as you get more experience in it, you'll start learning things like that. You might realize I was a little too close to that this time. I could hear the fan noise. So okay, next time I'm going to put it further away, and so forth. Also, the equipment set up on the receiving side. So we have sometimes groups that meet together, and we've paired it with networking ahead of time, almost like a normal face-to-face event with food and so forth. But the presenters aren't there in person, they're going to be on the screen. So you need someone that's going to take on that as well, that's going to be there running that. Reliable internet connection, as I mentioned, you got to be aware of what your Wi-Fi is like. I ran into a few issues with our last annual meeting. We did it at a country club, which didn't have great security, which was awesome, because I was able to connect easy to the Wi-Fi. But I did some speed tests on their upload speeds and download speeds, and it wasn't very great. So the nice thing about this camera is if you run into that situation where you don't have a strong signal, this can stream in 4K quality, which is great quality. But the higher resolution you go, the more data you have to use in that pipeline. And so unfortunately that day, that hose of pipeline that you could fit stuff through was really small. So I shrunk it down to 420p, which is significantly lower than 4K. But even at that, the video quality is still good. And even better, I had the external audio feeding into there. So the end user had excellent audio quality. So even if the picture quality wasn't the best, they were still getting all the audio content. But that's one of the challenges about the internet. Sometimes we have challenges with consent from people being on camera. And that's something that we've started just being upfront with them, say, hey, we're planning to live stream this or record it and then upload it to our YouTube channel later and so forth. Most people are fine with it, but some people get a little funny when they find out that they're going to be recorded. I think in this day and age, it's kind of safe to say just expect you're being recorded anywhere. But it unsettles a few people because it makes them feel like they can't open up all the way and share some stuff that they normally would share in like a more of a private setting. So just keep that in mind. And before one of our big joint presentations with HFMA, I think last year, we had a really big hitter CEO panel from well-noted CEOs from the Bay Area and San Francisco and so forth. And one of them, when found out that we were going to live stream, he's like, no. And so I just didn't do it. Didn't even record it. And so that can be a challenge. You know, you just gotta make sure up front, you know, especially if you're pre-planning to have this event, that you get their consent ahead of time. Because that one was literally like a minute before they started. He said, nope, I'm not doing it. And so I just had to turn off my camera and it just sat there. Advertising ahead of time, the nice thing about YouTube is you can go in and create your live stream ahead of time and get a unique URL link. So that's what I do, is go in there and get a unique URL link, and then we're able to send that out with registration. Whoever registered, and in case they want to do live stream, we can send out that link to them. So we have someone that helps us with all that, and so I just make sure she gets the link, and I can do it, you know, a year in advance if I want. But go in there, set it all up, and it's good to go. And as I mentioned, one of the challenges, you need to find a champion that's willing to learn all this. I've been doing it for 2.5 years, and I didn't know anything about this ahead of time. So it's been a learning process for me. So if you find someone that's that likes technology, likes learning, that's a good person to help champion this. And you know, it takes quite a bit of time to get up to speed on all this. And then also at the events, you know, that person's going to be occupied at the events for about at least an hour, hour and a half before the event, just setting up, making sure everything's good to go. And during the event, you know, this is what they're doing. This is where their attention is and focus. And then afterwards, as you can imagine, there's takedown. So it's kind of a time-consuming job, but it's well worth it. We've seen a lot of great feedback and responses on it, and we're just looking forward to continually growing it more. So with that, there's just ending on a personal note, finishing one of my last races with our son, and then there's my email address if you want to get a hold of me. So, do you want to do questions, or?
Yeah, did you want to show it?
Oh, yeah. Hey, do we got time?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see how this goes. So I have some samples of audio. Okay. We'll see how well this sound bar does over here. So this is one of our events that we did just using the audio from the built-in camera. We'll see how the audio does from here.
ACOs, bundled payments, chronic disease management,
So you kind of hear
patient-centered
the
medical homes,
echoing from the big
all these types of things
like
are
this.
to help curb that acute care utilization that we're seeing. Plus the use of incentive-based items as well as technology.
So you can, it still works good. It picks up everything. And then here is the sample. I won't blow it up, but you can hear.
14 medical centers around the country that has hired close to 4 dozen interns over a period of time. So if there's any interested individuals out there, I'd be happy to share some of the contact information and hopefully arrange so you can actually visit.
So hopefully you can hear a difference, and then real quick, let's go back to that one so you can hear again.
And to improve efficiency, use of hospitalists, case management, all of these types of things.
Yeah. So as you can tell, there's, you know, it works perfectly fine audio that way, but it's just enhancing it more by investing in external audio equipment.
Are they speaking directly into the mics?
With them? Or?
With the other mic.
Oh, which one?
The second video that you showed.
Oh, yeah, so they all have lavalier mics? Yeah, so that's a good question. It confuses people all the time. Because there's the in-house audio system. You know, if they have a microphone here like this one, or the handheld. I also need to either put, if I can't tie into the in-house audio, then I just mic them up. And so each of them have a lavalier mic. And the nice thing about that too is you can adjust the gain on them from my location so that it's kind of like a little bubble of what audio is going to capture. So you can turn down the gain and make the bubble this small so you can barely hear them, or you can expand the gain, that bubble, and it captures the audio right here. So you kind of put it somewhere in the middle. Or if you want to pick up, one of the times I had one of the microphones go down, or they were playing a video through a projector, and so I couldn't really hear it very well, but there was one of the people sitting pretty close to it, so I just upped their gain quite a bit, and so I was able to capture the audio just fine from the projector. Whereas otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to, somebody viewing wouldn't have heard it. So that's a nice thing about those is you can kind of expand or contract that bubble as much as needed. But I had everybody wired with a lavalier mic on that, which you have to explain to them ahead of time. It kind of confuses some of them because they're like, why do I have two microphones? Which one? So I just explained the one that's on them, that's only going into the video feed.
So a question about credit. So if you're live streaming it and they're remote, they do get face-to-face credit.
If they're at a place to sign in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all that. But then for your link on your YouTube channel, if people watch it, do they get like the qualified education credit, or is it's just there for them?
Yeah, it's just there as a resource.
Okay.
What do you do when you say you consent them? Do you do written consents or just verbal?
We haven't formalized that yet. It's more of it's been both. Either through our LPC chair, whoever's coordinating the event, I try to get them to do it ahead of time just through email, just so that we have kind of like a written, acknowledgement. But if needed, we just ask them. And I kind of do a practice anyways, right before the event starts when they're getting there, just remind them, hey, we're live streaming this or videoing this, as I'm kind of adjusting microphones or doing whatever. So.
And the second question is why YouTube versus WebEx or any of the other ones?
So WebEx, I don't know, that platform's a little stiff as far as being able to do videos and stream on that. Like I said, there are a lot of options. So if, your chapter played around with WebEx and got it working just fine, and that's great. For me, WebEx was more of like a professional setting, kind of, I don't know. You got the video, but it's kind of hard to get, better video in there and audio and so forth. So it just depends on whatever setup you're able to figure out. And this was easy too because I can get direct links to it. I can make it public, unlisted, private, whatever I want to do for each video. And then I can also grab the code, and I have a media library on our actual chapter website. So I'm able to grab the code from YouTube and embed in our actual video library. So I guess that's probably another reason why I chose YouTube over WebEx is it gives you that capability to build a resource library.
How many view this on desktop versus mobile?
Good question. We've had both. I think it's kind of a good mix. That's the other nice thing about YouTube. I'm not familiar with WebEx on mobile devices, but YouTube, you can stream it from pretty much anything. Any other questions?
Has this increased your engagement from, I guess, participants or members that would normally be?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately, that Learning from Leader event, we sent it out, advertised it as a live streaming event, and we had probably 9 or 10 military folks sign up for that to do the live stream, which we rarely get their engagement because it's hard for them to get there. So that was one area that we saw a significant benefit was for them. I noticed they registered pretty quickly for that with the live feed.
Yeah,
And just to kind of add on to that, so we do have some with Cal as well, current president. But this is a nice way to create a library of content, that we can use for the future, for anyone actually. Whether it's a Cal member or outside the member, but for our annual awards, we've had, a time where we've had 50 folks viewing, that award, so that's 50 additional folks that we can report back. So when Jerry Barish was here at the time, he allowed us to report the views, number of views as part of our reporting mechanism. So, this is just another way to continue to expand our reach, to the chapter, which, we just, got the results of our chapter survey, and every single metric has increased from the previous year. I think a lot of it is due to some of this innovative work that we are doing, especially around our events.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
So what is it, how do they ask questions? How do they engage that? Do they just type them out into the comments?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you keep those archived comments, or do you type them afterwards?
You can do either. I think I usually just hide them. But yeah, I think YouTube gives you the option to keep them viewable, or just people can't see them. During the event, people can see them coming through.
And are you able to, so how do you relay that back to your participants? If someone is messaging or, sending a, putting a comment in, how do you integrate that into the panel or to the speaker, or?
Yeah, so it just depends on the setup. If I'm kind of removed from where they are, then I'll just write it down, hand it to someone. They'll, get it up to the moderator. Or if I'm up front, close, they might check in with me every now and then. Hey, Eric, does anybody have questions online? And then that gives me a chance to oh yeah, so and so asked, So, but when we do have questions, they, restate the question, and then the panel addresses that. All right. Well, thank you.
Well, guys, we're running just a little bit over. If there's no additional questions, let's give one more round of applause to the panel. The handouts will be available shortly with John's, and there'll be copies of the PowerPoint after the conference. So thank you guys.